This is Marvin Faure, cycling coach and founder of Granfondo coaching specialist Alpine Cols. No matter how strong you are, Granfondos always start too fast. The leaders want to get away and everybody else wants to ride with people slightly faster than themselves. So what happens is the field stretches out more and more until it breaks up and eventually everybody is forced to slow down to a sustainable effort. So if you want to get a good result, you too have to start too fast. If you don't, most of the other riders at your level will be in front working together and you will never catch them. But if you overdo it and keep going too hard for too long, you will blow up and find yourself overtaken by weaker riders. So how to get this right? First the theory and then some more video to see how it works out in practice. The first thing to consider is the route profile, and especially the distance to the start of the first climb and the length of that climb. Let's look at 3 different cases with different profiles. Here's the profile of stage 3 of the Hautes-Pyrénées in 2019. The stage was 142 kilometers with 3,700 meters of climbing. There were only 2 kilometers of flat, which were neutralized anyway, before starting up the Port de Balès, which was a 19-kilometer climb at an average of 6%. I had no chance of winning the stage, and at my speed there was little advantage in drafting, so it made no sense to start fast. The best strategy here was to treat it as a time trial and immediately settle into the pace that I could sustain to the top and later over the other 3 climbs. If we look at the profile of the Corima, we see a completely different proposition. Although the distance was similar to the Haute Route stage at 146 kilometers, the climbing was quite limited at just over 2,000 meters. The key point is that the first significant climb was at kilometer 46, and before then it was essentially rolling hills with average gradients between 2 and 3.5%. I knew I could climb these gradients at a speed where drafting still makes a significant difference. So my objective here was to do what it took to stay with the best group possible until kilometer 46, and only then settle into my sustainable pace. The third profile is the Marmot, which at 175 kilometers and 5,000 meters is significantly tougher than the previous 2. The profile is in between because the Col du Glandon begins after 15 kilometers of mostly flat road. There's clearly a potential benefit to drafting a strong group here. If you can ride at 40 kilometers per hour on this section instead of 35, you'll gain about 3 minutes. And about 45 kilometers per hour instead of 35, you would gain almost 6 minutes. But at what cost? If you've gone too deep, there's a good chance you'll lose at least as much time on the climbs to come. So the best strategy here may be to make a reasonable effort to stay with a good group, but save most of your energy for later. So here's a quick summary of our 3 profiles. If the first major climb starts immediately, you should treat it as a time trial. If the first climb is a long way from the start, you need to make major efforts to stay with the best group possible. And at the Marmot, make a reasonable effort so you don't lose time pointlessly, but don't overdo it. Let's take a look at the start of the Corima and see what actually happened. Here we go. The first 2 kilometers were neutralized, but that doesn't stop people from trying to get to the front. My aim here is to hold my place, which involves a few hard efforts and a lot of vigilance. My average power in this section was highly variable, with lots of short spikes. At the end of the neutralized zone, we came to a short climb which called for a huge effort. I did about 30 seconds at 500 watts and then stayed above threshold for the next 7 minutes through a flat section and another short rise before I could finally back off on a short descent. I then continued to push hard until kilometer 46, with a lot of hard efforts to stay with the group. I finally got there after almost 1 hours 40 with a normalized power above 90% of threshold to show how hard it was. So much for the broad strategy, but it doesn't really answer the question, how fast is too fast? There's no easy answer to this. It's highly individual and depends on a bunch of factors. How fit you are on the day, the type of training you've been doing, your experience and bike handling skills, your ability to recover and refuel after a series of very hard efforts, and last but not least, how motivated you are. The better prepared you are on each of these points, the harder you can ride. The best advice I can give is to experiment and learn from experience. As part of your preparation for your main objective, ride a couple of other events with a similar profile and test your limits. You can't get it right without getting it wrong first. As you experiment, it's really important to listen to your body. The first sign that you've gone too hard is that you'll find it increasingly hard or maybe impossible to pedal above threshold or even to close a gap. The second sign is if you start to feel cramps. Typically this will happen after a series of hard efforts, and it's a sure sign that your muscles are not prepared for so much intensity. On the other hand, if you feel totally empty and have to slow right down or even stop, this is a sign not of having ridden too hard, but of failing to fuel properly. It's especially important to get your fueling right if you're really going to smash it for the first 60 or 90 minutes of a 5 to 6 hour event. So let's resume this in a couple of mantras. If you don't have much experience and you haven't specifically trained for a fast start, it might be best to adopt the triathlete's mantra: start at the effort you think you can finish at. If you want to give it your best shot, you're going to have to grit your teeth and suffer. So try something like, hold that wheel, come on, you can do it. Well, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and add a comment below. If you'd like to learn more about how to get your best result at a Granfondo, then come join one of our coaching camps.